So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience. And first, I want to ask, so you shared with me that you had been here last year playing the Ravel Quartet. So tell us a bit about how you got connected with this series and how you came here.
Yeah, this is a very meaningful occasion for me today because this is my second time visiting you. I don't know if anybody remembers me from last year. I had a little shorter hair, but yeah, me and my quartet came here to play three string quartet pieces, one by Jesse Montgomery Strum and Beethoven Opus 18 number 2, and then we finished the concert with Ravel string quartet. And yeah, I cannot believe it's been already a year. I think it's been a year and a half. Yeah, because it was in November 2022. Yeah.
And I think Richard mentioned that you had some kind of previous connection with him.
Oh,
Can you
that's
tell
right.
us about that?
Yeah, so Richard and I met in Puerto Rico in a music festival. It's called the International Chamber Orchestra of Puerto Rico. So the music director of the festival is a faculty at Indiana University. So I got connected to that music festival and I met Richard in the orchestra there. Yeah,
Music is a tight-knit community.
exactly.
So it seems to me that what you do is kind of like the duck floating on the water, and there's a lot of hard work going on that we can't see. So I wanted to ask you if you could share with us what are some of the challenges of putting together pieces like this? And we can give all three of you a chance to talk about that.
uh, so we are all based in Texas, but I live in Dallas, and both of them live in Austin. So I had to go down to have a rehearsal every now and then, and it was hard to keep track every time, like where we left, like from the last rehearsal, and then when we came back, did we decide what did we decide on this passage and things like that. But it was really interesting to have different ideas every time because this was our second time playing the same program between Eunjin and I. And then recently Corey joined us. But yeah, this is our new uh,
Line up.
way. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know what other people think.
Um, for me personally, because Corey is new, we played this piece with another cellist. I guess for the very first rehearsal, I just didn't know what to expect of, what if he wants something else that we have never expected before. Because you can hear the music in your ears, but it doesn't always guarantee that how other people will think about it, with like speed or dynamics, articulation, just everything. So that's something that probably challenged me the most, just preparing our very first rehearsal.
The question had to do with difficulties of putting this together, right? With chamber music, I think it's easy maybe from the audience's perspective when you see a full performance to see maybe a quote unquote final product. But I think from our perspective as musicians, it never feels quite perfected, and every concert is a little bit different. Maybe a room is more humid than another, or one's colder than another. So that kind of throws you through a little bit of a loop. And so some things might go really well and other things might change a little bit from one night to the next. And there's just so many like twists and turns that you want to kind of have perfectly in sync with players. And of course, as you do that more often, as you play a piece over and over and over again, that it gets a little bit better each time. But from our perspective, it never feels perfected. And in some sense, that's terrifying. In another sense, that's kind of, it kind of gives us motivation to continue this lifelong kind of pursuit of that, It's almost like an endless mountain climb that doesn't really have a top of the mountain, Yeah. That's a lot to say.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Well, it felt like a mountaintop tonight
Okay.
for us. So
Glad. Yeah.
do you have a favorite part of this particular program? Each of you, favorite movement, favorite passage?
For me, probably the last movement of Mendelssohn. Just every time it gives me different kind of emotions. Even though I play the same passage over and over, and it feels even more different when I present it in front of other people or when I share with other people. Yeah.
Thank you. And
I
Ben?
think it's gonna be the third movement of the Mendelssohn, the really fast one, because when we started, it was not that fast, and it's like every time you think, oh, we can do faster, maybe even faster. So like, I feel like it just gets more exciting each time you play. So I'm gonna pick that one.
I was listening to a recording of the piece over the past few days, and I can say that you guys were fast. It was cool.
I personally like the slow movement of the Mendelssohn because it's nice. It's not nearly as terrifying, but you can also like really sink into the string and really like sing a lot with your instrument, and it's much more luscious, and it kind of allows you to like pull out the beauty in your instrument that you've trained so hard to pull out of the instrument. Yeah. So slow movements allow us to do that. I like that.
Great. I love the variety of viewpoints that you all bring to this.
They're all wrong, but
Well, and we could get on the, one instrument versus another kind of conversation, but we'll save that for another time. We will open it up to the audience. Does anyone have anything they would like to ask our performers? I'm going to bring you the mic. That way we can all hear.
I actually had a couple of questions in mind until Corey spoke. And I'd never really thought about the impact of the venue itself on how you play. So, basketball players have to worry about what the gym's like when they go to a new place, and golfers and so forth. And I now realize the same thing must be true for musicians, of course. So what was weird or required adaptation about this place compared to others? How do you go about adjusting to a new venue when you're playing?
I think part of it comes from just having a mindset of trying to be flexible, because we're used to practicing in our homes and maybe in a specific room where we understand what the sound is going to be like and the reverb of the room. So you come into a new room, like for me today, coming into this space, it was hard for me to hear myself at times, and I can't just kind of do anything about that. You kind of have to just like say, that's how it is today, see what they have to say.
For me, this venue is very ringing, and this instrument happened to be very loud compared to the one that I'm used to in my practice room. That's why I put half stick, and then I guess I always judge by how much I can hear the other people when I'm playing chamber music. Then I know, okay, how much dynamic I can go today, how soft or what's the middle ground that always works for, like that kind of thing. Then that basically gives me some perspective about it.
That's a challenge for a pianist that you usually can't bring your own instrument with you everywhere. And Sun?
Yeah, I agree with both of them. It's all about adjustment into the new environment. And even though I had an experience playing here, I forgot about it, and then all the memory came back, and I guess I had an advantage of it. But yeah, we had to talk about a little bit of a different kind of a sound in the beginning of the Raphael. because the acoustic here, it felt it goes pretty direct and comes back not as I expected. So yeah, we were working on that today in the sound check.
Thank you. Other questions? Anyone? Hey, and I'll come over to the other side after this.
So this is actually for you, I guess. I'm intrigued by Ravel, and I'm wondering what the influences were on him, because it's really hard to pinpoint. Who is this person?
Well, I would like to hear from the performers. So, what do you think about Ravel's influences? Where does his style come from?
I think I could be thinking of Debussy, but I think one of his teachers was Fauré, another great French composer at the time. And I remember reading that, like, of course, you're kind of influenced by your teachers, but then you read about a piece of music that he wrote that, like, he'll specifically mention, like, oh, my teacher didn't like this, you know? So I think it partly comes from the musicians you're surrounded by, and then also your disagreements with them. So it's kind of a double-sided coin where it's like, yeah, this is nice, but I'm going to try this. And yeah, everybody's going to have a different opinion about it. So I can't speak much more on Ravel specifically, I think. But
Well, he was born in 1875. I just looked that up. And so in the early 20th century, there were a lot of changes going on in the arts, in technology. That all was an influence. And I heard there was one particular point where the piano got really jazzy. I know that Ravel was interested in jazz music. And I know that he was also interested in different music from other places like gamelan music. There was a big Asian influence in French music at the time. So those are some of the influences. Anything else that you all know of? No? All right. Well, I think there was a question over here. Did someone over here have a question? No, I thought I had seen a hand up earlier. Maybe someone had the question answered already. Okay, talk about the instruments. Anything specifically about them?
Is cello and history of that in the violin?
The history of the cello and the violin. I don't know if we can do that. Okay. Do your instruments have any particular stories to tell? Your specific instruments?
I think, well, with string musicians in general, there's always kind of like you either have a modern instrument or you have an older instrument, and there's pros and cons to each, and it kind of makes a string player sound fancy when they've got a nice old instrument. Like, I've got a fine Italian 200-year-old something or something, you know. My cello was made in 2012, so it is a modern instrument, and I call it the tank because it is not that fragile. It sometimes, you know, I can be clumsy putting it in its case. Sometimes it'll get knocked on a table and it's like, it's a tank, it's fine, you know, whereas an old fine instrument I wouldn't be able to do that with. But yeah, I have a modern instrument and an old bow, but nothing really.
And I've heard string players say that sometimes the bow is like more critical than the main instrument itself.
Weird how the bow can change the set, because the hair is always, it always costs the same whether you're a student or professional.
Yeah, interesting. Anything about your instrument that is unique, Sund?
Been playing on this violin since I was 12 or 13 years old. Oh, so it's been quite a lot. More than 20 years, almost, 30. But anyways, this one, I found it through my old teacher who used to teach in Manhattan. And then he found this violin, and then that's when I decided to go on music major. And we went through a lot. And sometimes I feel like I discovered this violin for a while, so I feel like I know it a lot well. And sometimes I feel like, oh, I wish I had that kind of sound to someone who has this Strat or quaternary and like a really old fine instruments. But mine has its own voice, and I appreciate that. And it's a Italian, not too old, but also not too young, but was made in 1949. Yeah, in Bologna.
And after all of that time having it for so many years, it probably feels like kind of an extension of your body.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah, great. And Eunjin, do you have a special piano at home that you miss and are looking forward to getting home to?
Not really, but I did enjoy playing on this piano. I don't think I've ever played this this maker's piano. It was very similar to, I would say, Yamaha, something like, yeah, very bright, also responds very well. So which I like always. So yeah, that was great about this piano.
Anyone have any other questions? Oh, do you know which high schools you're going to? Yes.
East Lansing and then Okemos. Is that how you say it? Okemos.
Wonderful. Will you play the whole program for the students or just part of it? Yeah. Great. Good. Anything else?
Well, I'll return to a question I had to begin with. I don't play any instruments, so this and that's all phrasing. This is nothing, but I've been thinking about this as a folk concert that we heard last week. But to the violinist with having the violin or the violin combo sounded really great with long bow note, but the staccato, so the sending note kind of stuff was pretty much it. And that's absolutely not true. Because for the violin and the cello tonight, there was such precision in the fast individual note kind of stuff. And so I've been thinking about how do you achieve such precision in doing that. And just the question could come is, send me your first play that did what he did.
I don't know how Corey practices this kind of difficult passages or even engine, but for me, I always go for rhythm practice. So one like long short and short long. I put some dotted rhythm, so my hands adjust to different kind of rhythms. So it adjusts quickly to another rhythms. Anyways, that's one thing, and I also practice with slowly, so that I learn that shift or intervals precisely. That helped a lot.
Favorite common thing you body. I don't know.
It's a little bit of both. So for the bow to be able to pull a clear sound, the finger has to have the string completely stopped. And if the string is ever so slightly like not fully pressed down to the fingerboard, you get the mushy sound, So she's talking about this rhythm practice that I think string players and pianists do. She was calling it dotted rhythm, but for those of you who may not know, that third movement goes ba-da-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba, and it's just straight notes. But Sun was actually before this, and I should have probably done it more too. This rhythm practice sounds like you're swinging it. So ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. So you're getting certain note relationships to be really quick, and then you flip that on its head, and the inverse of that rhythm is ba-da-ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so you're getting to feel these different finger changes without the stress of having to go ba-da-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit less stressful, but you're training the finger to have that flexibility. It's kind of like stretching before a workout in a way, or something like that, But yeah, it is something we stress over a lot. Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Oh, yes.
I was just wondering, like, before you start a performance, and you're just kind of like preparing like sound check and stuff, like what is kind of the process in terms of like, do you do like certain warm-ups that you prefer, or certain like mental things that kind of put you in like the mindset and the kind of ability and stuff to be able to perform as well as you like?
Great question.
I always try to find a balance between a little bit of nervousness and then a little bit of peace in my mind. Because if I'm too peaceful on the stage, it doesn't sound quite exciting. If I'm too nervous, then I often forget what I was going to play. Or, physically, things can also get messed up on the spotlight. So, yeah, before any stage, it's always, I always get nervous, no matter how, who I'm playing for. Even just for my husband, I always get nervous. But yeah, I try to always find that. And then, but then when I go on the stage, then just try to focus on the music as much as possible, even, nothing, noise or car sound, nothing like that, but just try to listen to music as much as I can.
For me, it can go further back to a few days before the concert. So I prepare mentally, like I already imagine the place and I'll be playing for these people, and just so that of course we get nervous because we play for other people and scared about my mistakes, or what if other people don't like my sound and things like that. So mental practice has been really helpful for me to calm myself down and be into this zone or mindset that I'll be performing. So that's one thing. And then also in that mental practice, I listen to music or my recording a lot. Like from our rehearsal, we record it and listen to ourselves, and here I can do this better and there better. So self evaluation, I guess, I give myself, and so I think I prioritize this mindset is very helpful. Yeah.
One thing that we did as we got here today for sound check was something that is really calming, which is finding any passage. We chose the fourth movement of the Ravel, and finding a tricky spot and then just playing through it really slowly, like to the point where it doesn't sound like it would be performance ready. Like we played something at like a crawling pace, essentially. And, in that moment when something's so slow, you can control everything really well, even if you're nervous. So you sound pretty good, even though it doesn't sound like the tempo you're going to end up playing. But I think what's interesting is when you're in a performance, you don't realize it. You have adrenaline running. So that slow practice actually feels pretty similar to what it's like to play at normal tempo when that adrenaline's running. You don't realize you're playing as fast as you are in a performance because of the nerves and the adrenaline. So I think that slowly walking, us playing through that slowly not only helped us get a little familiar with the sound and the acoustics of the room, but also it's kind of like flushing out the brain of any like nerves. And you're just like, this is nice. This is comforting. And it gives you a little bit of a confidence boost, even though you're playing something really slowly. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being here. Please give them one more round of applause. Thank you.